Hey everyone, ready to dive in. Today we're tackling speech and language therapy.
A fascinating field, really. And we're going way beyond just, you know, correcting how someone says their R's. We're talking about using tech to make a real impact.
Absolutely. And to guide us, we've got RoleCatcher's insights, their
Mhm.
career guide, their job platform, even their interview prep resources. They're doing some exciting things.
They are. Their platform actually uses AI, which is pretty cutting edge in this field.
Okay, so before we get into all that, let's start with the basics. When you think speech and language therapist, what comes to mind?
Most people probably picture, like you said, someone helping a child pronounce words correctly.
Right, but there's got to be more to it than that.
Oh, definitely. It's so much broader. Think communication and swallowing disorders, and not just in kids. We're talking about people of all ages.
Yeah, the RoleCatcher guide uses this phrase, disorders and disabilities in the cranial, facial, and oral area. It's kind of a mouthful, but it seems to cover a lot of ground. What does that actually look like in practice?
It means a therapist might be helping a stroke patient relearn how to speak, or they might be working with a child with autism, helping them communicate, maybe through picture cards or sign language.
So it's really about breaking down those communication barriers, whatever they might be.
Exactly, whatever those barriers are and whatever it takes to overcome them.
Now, the guide also mentions something called dysphagia, especially in the context of seniors or people with certain conditions. What is dysphagia?
So dysphagia is basically difficulty swallowing. It might sound simple, but it can be a really serious issue, especially for, like you said, older adults or people with certain medical conditions.
That makes sense. But what can a speech and language therapist actually do to help someone with a swallowing disorder?
Well, for one, they can use something called a digital swallow study. It lets them see how the patient's throat is moving in real time and pinpoint the issue.
Wow, so they're using like high-tech imaging to analyze how someone swallows.
Exactly. And based on that, they can create a personalized treatment plan that might involve exercises to strengthen the muscles or even recommendations for modifying their diet.
That's incredible. It's amazing how technology is being used in ways we might not even think about.
It really is. And that actually brings us to another way technology is changing the game. Telepractice. Have you heard of that?
I have. It's basically telehealth, but for speech therapy, right?
You got it. Instead of in-person sessions, therapists can connect with clients remotely using video conferencing.
That's got to open up so many possibilities for people.
Oh, absolutely. Think about a child in a rural area who needs a specialist. Telepractice makes that possible. Or someone with mobility issues who can't easily leave home, they can still get the therapy they need.
It's really incredible how technology is breaking down those geographical barriers. So we've talked about the clients, but what about the therapists themselves? Where do they typically work?
I'm sure you can guess a few of the most common ones.
Schools, hospitals, those are the obvious ones, but the guide makes it seem like there are a lot more options.
Right. You could work in a school setting, sure, or a hospital. But you could also work in a private practice, a rehab center, even a client's home. It really varies.
So there's a surprising amount of variety in terms of the work environment.
There is. One day you could be working with a classroom full of kindergartners, and the next you could be helping an adult who's lost their speech due to an injury.
Wow, it sounds like no 2 days are the same in this field. So what kind of person thrives in that kind of environment? Someone who enjoys a challenge.
Definitely. Someone who's adaptable, for sure. And it's not enough to just know the technical stuff. You have to be great with people, too.
That makes sense. The Rolecatcher Guide actually calls out social perceptiveness as being super important for speech and language therapists. What does that mean exactly?
It means you're not just listening to the words someone is saying, but also paying attention to their body language, their tone of voice. Those nonverbal cues can tell you so much.
So it's almost like being a detective, but instead of solving crimes, you're solving communication breakdowns.
Exactly. You're looking for those subtle hints that can help you understand your client better. Because at the end of the day, every client is unique.
Right. And every case is different. So you need to be a creative problem solver too.
Absolutely. Sometimes the textbook approach isn't going to cut it, and you need to think outside the box. But that's part of what makes this field so rewarding. You're constantly being challenged to grow and learn.
Speaking of learning and growing, the guide also talks about the different career stages for speech and language therapists. Can you walk us through what that progression typically looks like?
Sure. A lot of people start out as assistants, working under the supervision of a more experienced therapist.
So it's like an apprenticeship.
Exactly. You get to learn the ropes, get some hands-on experience, and build your confidence.
And after you've put in the time as an assistant, what comes next?
Well, from there, you might move into a junior therapist role. You'd be taking on more responsibility, conducting your own assessments, designing treatment plans.
And eventually, you might become a senior therapist. The guide made it sound like senior therapists do a lot more than just work with clients.
They do.
Yeah.
They might supervise other therapists or collaborate with other healthcare professionals. Some even get involved in research, helping to advance the field even further.
It seems like mentorship is a big part of this profession at every level.
Oh, definitely. You're always learning from those around you, whether they're more experienced or just starting out. And speaking of specialized knowledge, the guide also touched on certifications. It's not a one-size-fits-all field, is it?
No, it sounds like there are a lot of different directions you could go in.
Exactly. There are specializations for just about every area you can think of. For example, you could specialize in working with children, which requires a specific certification, the CCC-SLP.
CCCSLP. I'm going to have to work on that acronym. But you're saying there are a lot of other areas of focus as well.
Lots. You could specialize in swallowing disorders, for instance, or you could focus on augmentative and alternative communication, which is basically anything that helps people communicate who can't speak or have difficulty speaking.
So things like sign language or even high-tech communication devices.
Exactly. And for clients, knowing that their therapist has that specialized knowledge can make a huge difference.
Of course. It's like seeing a doctor who specializes in your specific condition. It gives you that peace of mind.
Exactly. It builds trust, too. And that's so important in this field.
Now, let's say someone is interested in becoming a speech and language therapist. What does a job search look like? What does RoleCatcher have to offer in that area?
Well, for starters, their job search platform is amazing. It uses AI to match your skills and experience to actual job openings.
No more spending hours sifting through irrelevant job postings. That's a game changer. But what about once you land an interview?
That's where RoleCatcher really shines, in my opinion. They have this incredibly detailed database of interview questions specific to different professions, speech and language therapy included.
So you can practice answering real-life interview questions beforehand.
You got it. It's like having a cheat sheet, but not really cheating, of course.
Okay, that makes sense. It's like having a sneak peek at the questions before you even step into the interview room. But it gets even better than that, right? Didn't RoleCatcher take it a step further with, like, AI-powered feedback or something?
Yeah, they actually analyze your responses and give you personalized tips. It's amazing. It's like having a personal coach right there on your computer.
That's pretty impressive. No more wondering if you're rambling or if you answered the question the right way. Okay, so with RoleCatcher, you can find jobs, you can practice your interview skills, but are there any questions that tend to trip people up, even with all that prep?
You know, there is one that the guide mentioned. A lot of candidates stumble on it, even if they have a ton of experience.
Oh, really? What is it? Lay it on us.
It's something like, describe a time you had to adapt your treatment plan for a specific client's needs. Sounds pretty straightforward, right?
It does, but I can see how it could be tricky. You can't just give a generic answer, can you?
Nope. They want to see that you can think on your feet, that you can handle those real-world situations where things don't always go according to plan. So it's really about showcasing those problem-solving skills, showing them you can handle whatever comes your way.
So it's not enough to just say you're adaptable. You have to have a specific example ready to go.
Exactly. And the more specific, the better. Paint them the picture. Who was the client? What were their unique needs? How did you adjust your approach?
It's about showing, not telling, right?
100%. A good story will stick with them long after the interview's over.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes down to it, this field is all about storytelling, helping people find their voice, helping them communicate their own stories.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It sounds like this is a career for people who are passionate about making a real difference in people's lives. And based on what we've learned from RoleCatcher, it seems like a field that's constantly evolving, too.
Oh, for sure. The technology is incredible. And who knows what the future holds? I mean, just imagine virtual reality to help with social anxiety, or AI that can adapt to a child's learning style in real time. The possibilities are mind-blowing.
It really is exciting to think about. Well, that wraps up our deep dive into speech and language therapy. It's clearly a field with so much to offer, both for the therapist and the people they help.
I totally agree. It's been great talking about it with you.
Likewise. And for our listeners, if any of this has sparked your interest, I highly recommend checking out RoleCatcher. They've got some amazing resources to help you on your journey, whether you're just starting out or looking to take your career to the next level.